Just so you know, we will react to all of the songs from this one. Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage. I've reviewed almost 500 indie movies on the channel and we are actually quite close to that big number now. Only a handful more and we are there. Today's one was not directly picked by one of our awesome Salameister tier supporters, but Arif has asked me to react to the songs of this particular movie. And then, when I looked it up, I pretty much immediately decided that it's a movie that I want to watch and review anyway, because it is regarded as a landmark movie in Hindi cinema for several reasons. So I thought, why not watch it first, do a review for you, and then in a few weeks I will show all the songs to Dennis the Bodymeister and we can react to them together. When it comes to superstars of Indian cinema, three of the biggest ever are the so-called three Khans of Bollywood: Shah Rukh, Salman and Aamir. While I already covered the movies that really launched the careers of the first two, Dar, Bazigar and Kabhi Haan Kabhi Na for Shah Rukh and Maine Pyar Kiya for Salman, I was yet obliged to do the same for Aamir. And he actually was the first of the three, and the role he played and the type of character and performance he brought to the big screen is one of the things that made this movie so groundbreaking and influential. The movie is of course QAYAMAT Se QAYAMAT Tak, a Hindi language romantic drama that came out in 1988 and was a giant success with audiences and critics alike. It won the National Film Award for Best Popular Film, providing wholesome entertainment, as well as 8 Filmfare Awards including Best Film, Best Director, Best Male Debut and Best Female Debut. It was the feature-length directorial debut of Mansoor Khan, who was actually working on another script, the one for Juhi Chawla, which then became his second film in 1992. But his father, the legendary filmmaker Naseer Hussain, had an idea for a modern Indian Romeo and Juliet-like story, and he also wanted to give his nephew a chance to play the romantic lead. And his nephew is Aamir Khan. It wasn't the first time he appeared in a movie, but it was the first time he played the lead, and this movie instantly made him super popular. The 1980s are often regarded as a dark period for mainstream Hindi cinema, and with the rise of video and movies that have become a bit stale, the audience didn't show up as they used to have. But QAYAMAT Se QAYAMAT Tak was a breath of fresh air, and oftentimes it is credited for revitalizing Bollywood and ushering in this new wave of romantic musicals that should then dominate the 1990s. Watching it for the first time now, and as an outsider, it's actually not that easy to really grasp how different and fresh it was. Honestly, it felt rather familiar to me, pretty similar to what I've already seen a lot of times, and maybe not as special as it was back then. Which doesn't mean that I didn't like it, I actually liked it a lot, but the groundbreaking effect it had manifested itself much more subtle or softer than I expected. Because it's actually a really classic story with a lot of familiar elements or tropes. Two young star-crossed lovers from two families who are mortal enemies. But the little things the movie's doing differently, at least in comparison to other Hindi movies of that time, were enough to make this really stick out and give audiences something new. First of all, aside from producer and main screenwriter Naseer Hussain, this was really a movie of a new guard. A first-time director, a brand new lead in Aamir, and while Juhi Chawla has already acted in a few other films, she was also still super fresh. It was also a first-time director of cinematography with Kiran Deohans, and it also marked a breakthrough for the composer duo Anand and Milind Srivastava, who brought a new kind of music to the table. Now the biggest factor in all of this might be Aamir Khan, and what kind of persona he brought. Again, watching it now and with the many similar movies that I have already seen, it might be difficult to see what's so special about it. This kind of boy next door type of hero I have seen countless times. But in 1988, apparently the hero people were used to was still of that old Amitabh Bachchan angry young man template. While Amitabh has become older at the time and even took a little hiatus from acting to get into politics, even the new actors who were trying to make it to the top kind of molded their on-screen personas in that angry young man manner. Raj, the hero of QAYAMAT Se QAYAMAT Tak, has moments in which he fights back and kicks some goons' asses, and he has that rebellious energy as well, as their love stands against the wishes of their families. But he's also, at least for a mainstream Hindi movie, really grounded and normal, if you will. Softer, more sensitive, not as aggressive. Like I said, like the boy next door. And with Aamir Khan's charming, endearing performance, this deviation from the old formula was enough to make an impact. And of course, it helped that the movie overall feels quite charming and genuine. Not that the characters are super deep or anything, but they feel real and maybe more realistic than your usual mainstream archetypes. But before we are even introduced to Aamir's character Raj, the movie already got me fully on board in delaying its title and opening credits sequence for about 10 minutes, where it establishes this really dramatic and intense clash between two Thakur families. It's set in the past, when Raj was still a young child. His father, Dhanraj Singh, played by Dalip Tahil, has two siblings, a brother, played by Alok Nath, and a younger sister, Madhu, played by Seema Vas. She has been dumped by Ratam, the young son of that other rich Thakur family. But not only was she dumped, she was also impregnated by him. And he cold-heartedly just tells her that she could get an abortion because he just got engaged to another girl. Because of all this heartbreak and humiliation, Madhu commits suicide. And what does her older brother do? In the midst of that other family's marriage festivities, he carries the dead body of his sister to them, lays her in front of them, and then he takes his rifle and just shoots that scumbag who's responsible for all of this. And then, freeze frame on his face, and the title appears, together with this really badass background score. Damn, that's a pretty fantastic and powerful opening. The title, by the way, can be translated as From Doom to Doom, or From Apocalypse to Apocalypse, or From Judgment Day to Judgment Day. So pretty heavy stuff, which obviously hints at the movie's darker, really dramatic side. Now, a few years pass, and when Dhanraj Singh is released from prison, his son Raj has already grown up, and is of course now played by Aamir Khan. And a tragic and also romantic film like this gets more tragic and more romantic by the heavy contrasts, through the joy and love right next to the hateful feud and tragedy that occurred. And therefore, the introduction of Aamir Khan happens through this really wonderful song and dance sequence happening at Raj's college farewell party. And this is certainly a good moment to talk about the music. QAYAMAT Se QAYAMAT Tak isn't a movie that's packed with one song and dance sequence after the next. For its runtime of 162 minutes, which once again was honestly far too long for my own taste, it actually has not that many songs. With this one, it's really more about quality over quantity, and all its songs are really quite wonderful. I'm really no expert when it comes to music, I'm not a Bodymeister, but to my ears the soundtrack by Anand-Milind just sounds so vibrant and joyous. The first song that we get is Papa Karte Hai, which apparently became like the anthem of the young generation. And the soundtrack became the best-selling Bollywood music soundtrack album of 1988. And who provided the playback voice for Aamir? None other than Udit Narayan, who at that time was still rather unknown. This was his big break, which also earned him his first Filmfare Award. I really just love his voice. There's just such a warm and endearing quality about it. My two favorite songs of the film are the first and the last, Papa Karte Hai and Akele Hai Tu Kyam Gam Hai, which is one of the few duets, with Alka Yagnik providing the voice for Juhi Chawla. And speaking about Juhi Chawla, she's not only really lovely and they have wonderful chemistry, but I also really liked how the character presents itself. Again, it's not super deep, but for once there's a character who's passionate about something, in this case photography, which makes for a really sweet and romantic scene in which she sees Raj for the first time. And then she's also someone who pushes and fights back. Yeah, there's a scene in which some goons are behaving really bad, but it's not just one of those scenes in which men violently show their power over a young woman, but this young woman actually kicks the guy right in the dick. And that's nice. Now, overall, like I said, it's a really long movie, and just for my own taste, it doesn't need to be this long. And while I can see how it brought something fresh to the table, I also am already really familiar with this kind of story and characters. But it also has a lot of things going for it. with the music, the lovely performances, and also the power of that beginning and the uncompromising ending, which director Mansoor really had to fight for. But in the end, he got what he intended, and I think it's quite powerful. It got to me, and so the movie certainly did something right. So, in German I'd say, QAYAMAT se QAYAMAT Tak war ein wegweisender Film im Hindi Kino, der zwar heute nicht mehr ganz die unverbrauchte Frische hat, die ihn damals so besonders gemacht hat, aber für Fans von romantischen Bollywood Filmen ist Aamir Khans großer erster Auftritt natürlich Pflichtprogramm und die Musik von Anand-Milind zum Dahinschmelzen. I give QAYAMAT se QAYAMAT Tak 8 out of 10. It's more like 7.5, but I don't do that. Alright, that's it like always. Comment below and let me know what you think about QAYAMAT se QAYAMAT Tak. You can hit me up on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd and also on Patreon, simply at TheJimmyCage. And if you enjoyed this episode, please give me a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like. And make sure you hit that bell for all I have to tell.